Hey, good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing on this beautiful Sunday morning? Got decent temperatures again, a little bit of breeze, chance of rain today. It's a little dark in here. Hopefully, I'll have my lights up pretty soon. Going to go ahead today and take the clean transmission I pressure washed off the old broke hood. That's the hood that flew up, hit the windshield, and I just used it. You can see it's all busted up, so I've been kind of using it for a pressure washing platform. So guys, we're gonna get the transmission put onto the back of the car, 4.6, get our freshly turned flywheel, new clutch, pressure plate, throw out bearing, get it all hooked up to the back of the motor, and we're gonna slide it in and set it down. All right, guys. All right, guys, how's it going? So when I left you last, we were fixing to put the motor and transmission back in the 04 GT. And it should already be back in there on the last video, which was a couple of days ago because I had to go back to work. Let me explain why the motor's not back in. So I've been trying to do all the items on these engines that, TLC items, things that will rear their head up on these engines. I worked for a Ford dealership back in the 90s, early 90s, when these 4.6s were first starting to come out into the cars. And I only worked around them a short time before I moved on from the dealership. So I'm a Fox body guy. I had a Fox body back then. One of these days, I'm gonna do a little video and do some pictures and stuff, and you guys can check it out. It was a real nice Fox body. So I really haven't messed with these engines a whole lot. They're almost 20 years old. So I just really haven't had any experience with them a whole lot. So when I got ready to put this engine back in the car, I was getting ready. I noticed this heater hose right here, and I said, "Oh man, that thing's way in the back. Maybe I need to go ahead, because I wanted to change all the hoses and everything. I was like, maybe I want to go ahead and change that thing out because it might be pretty difficult back there in the back." So when I went to start looking to change out that heater hose, I got to thinking, well, this looks like some kind of tube. So I was like, well, where does that tube go? So once I started researching that, that's when I found out it really started coming up. That tube comes all the way into the front and hooked to another barb pipe, I'm going to call it, in the back with 2 O-rings on it. In the center, this water pump housing in the back. And those things are prone to corrode. There's 2 little O-rings. They're prone to leak. I talked to the previous owner of the car. He's never done anything to that. And I said, man, I just can't put this motor back in the car without checking that out. So I'm going to remove the alternator and I'm going to try to inspect it. But ultimately what I see happening is me taking the intake off and just really doing a visual inspection and probably just changing that tube out. It's not very expensive. It's just a matter of taking the intake off. And to be honest, from what I understand, these gaskets, after a little time on the corners, they also start giving up. And I had already considered about taking the intake off and checking those gaskets. So you know what? I'm trying to get this car where we can take long trips with it and know that, you know, I've done all I can to keep from being on the side of the road. So I'm going to take the alternator off, but eventually I see just taking the whole intake off, inspecting that tube, replacing it, doing whatever I got to do. I'll sleep better at night knowing that that's been done and new intake gaskets put on it. So that's the reason the motor's not back in the car. This thing is out, easily accessible to do this. We're talking like 60 bucks for the gaskets, the tubes, if I have to replace it. So guys, I'm just going to go ahead and take this intake off. I was a little curious about the gaskets anyway, so I'm just going to go on and take it off and check all this out, inspect it, replace it, whatever's got to be done. And then as far as I know, that should be the last thing, you know, major thing that would be a pain in the butt to do in the car, and do it while I got the engines out. So while the engine's out, we're going to do it. And it's a lot easier working right here than bending over into there. So that's the reason for the delay. I'm going to go ahead and get to it. And once we get that done, then we'll put the engine back in the car. All right, guys, got the intake off, and I went ahead and took the vacuum cleaner, my shop vac. There was a lot of debris up here and around the intake ports in the valley. It was making me real nervous. Man, I just want to hurry up and get all that crap, loose debris and acorns and everything. I just want to get it all cleaned up. I didn't want nothing falling in the hole, so I didn't show that because I was nervous. I was like, man, I got to get that stuff vacuumed up now. But anyways, we got that cleaned up. So we got that cleaned up, and we found some potential problems. And it's funny how, you know, wanting to check this tube out is led to some other things, which is good. So a couple of problems that we have found. We'll start off. When I went to take these intake bolts out, they were kind of hard. You can tell they rusted. And if you'll look right there, see that looks a little thinner? Yeah, it was starting to corrode. The threads were starting to give way. And what would have been terrible, was easy as accessible as this thermostat is to get to, is one day to go to take that bolt out and it just keep corroding till it snapped off. That was problem number one. Problem number two was I found an intake gasket that was starting to give way. You can see the bulge right there, and intake gasket was giving away right there. But here's another thing. Look at this water port. The water port is collapsing, and there's actually, if you can see it, there's a crack starting to form right there. So this intake is trash. I spoke to the owner. He put this intake on about 4.5 years ago. This is a Dorman intake. It's a cheaper intake versus the $400 Ford performance intake. So I'm glad we did this. It sucks that I got to replace this intake, but that was eventually the way you see that collapsing was going to leave us on the side of the road. So we did, done some good here. We inspected the tube, and there's a small crack forming in that. I'll put a picture up because it's kind of dark in here. I'll put a picture up and show you. So we're going to change out that tube. The actual nipple, it looks to be in pretty good shape. Just needs cleaning. It's still in good shape. We'll clean that up, put some new O-rings on it. But yeah, this right here, this is a major thing. I mean, that's supposed to be straight along with that gasket, and it's collapsing. You can see over here, you don't see that, but a little different design on that side, but still. So this was a good thing, a costly thing. I'm in the process right now of trying to see what intake I want to go with. Obviously, this Dorman is a cheaper intake. It's obviously a cheaper intake, and it's the better way to go as far as your wallet. But durability, I'm not so sure. So we're going to investigate some intakes. There's not a lot out there. If I do decide to buy the Ford intake, I've seen other threads where people were talking like they're so far behind on those intakes. People are waiting weeks and even months on those intakes. So I don't have to have the Ford performance intake. I know they make more torque. I know they make more horsepower. I know they're a better intake. But also, I think those Ford intakes, from another video that I seen on some of the Ford intakes, I think they've suffered some breakage as well. So, I don't want to pay $400 for an intake and then 5 or 6 years down the road, it's going to do the same thing. So anyways, all right, guys. So I'm going to go on and wrap this video up. I'm going to end it here because this is going to take a while. This is going to take some research, and I wasn't expecting to have to buy an intake because I really want to get my lights up. That was really the next big project, that I wanted to spend money on, was getting some lights in here. And like I say, I just wasn't expecting that. So we're going to do some research, and we're going to see what we can come up with. All right, guys. So as I end this video, as always, I want to thank my subscribers, and I want to thank you guys that take the time to view my videos. I've told you before, I know I'm not that good at it, but I'm trying. And hopefully what I've done here will help somebody, because that's why I watch YouTube. If it wasn't for me noticing that hose on the back of that motor, I'd have never noticed that tube, and none of this would have ever took place. So I have, other people that have placed their stuff on YouTube, their videos, I have them to thank for that, because that's probably going to keep me from sitting on the side of the road. And that's what I'm after. The car is 20 years old. I'm trying to do all I can. I would like to take this car on long trips, and that's why I'm doing this. So again, thank you to my subscribers. Thank you for those that watch the videos, and I'll try to keep putting the content out and mixing it up a little bit. And I just thank you guys for watching, and I appreciate each and every one of you. All right, guys, you have a great day. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next video. Thank you, guys.